please ask for help. Our best thinking got us into this situation. So anytime I tried to work out my mental health by myself, it just made it worse. So I
Yep.
needed somebody outside me to help. Try somebody, a friend, tell the friend, somebody, anyone, and create that pathway to get what you need. Don't stop on the first door. They may not work for you, but there is someone for you. Reach out to Vincent, reach out to myself. The other thing for those who already have good mental health and have had that enlightenment, this is what I want to say. Mental health is not a one moment phenomena. It's an everyday work. Freedom to be free, for me to be this free today, is work.
I'm excited to bring on someone I met, of course, through cold networking. Brought him on writing with authors because his book talked about self-doubt, imposter syndrome, breaking free of expectations. Today, we learn his story going from Zimbabwe to Australia at just 16 years old, studied law, found professional success, but then internally, he grappled with suppressing his identity as a gay man due to childhood trauma and the illegality of homosexuality in Zimbabwe. He overcame it all, health issues, financial struggles, homelessness, now to a roaring success. Rugare, it's great to see you from around the world. Thanks for stopping by a mental health break this time.
You're so welcome, Vincent. It's just wonderful to continue the conversation, really. It's amazing to be with you.
You have so much to offer, not just the book. That interview will be in the show description, everyone, if you want to learn more about his writing journey. That book, I'm sure, will come up today here on a mental health break. My name is Vincent A. Lancy. Excited to bring on another guest. If it's your first show with us, thanks for stopping by. If you're returning, thank you for stopping by. And to all my guests, thank you so much for making this one of the number one podcasts for mental health advocates on the podcast platforms. This show is brought to you by Coming Alive Podcast Production. Head to the link in bio to learn more about them. But as I always try to start out, please share your mental health journey from wherever you feel comfortable.
Absolutely. Firstly, growing up, there is no conversation for mental health. It's not even an idea. And I think the relationship of mental health, particularly in Zimbabwe, and it's not just to Zimbabwe, but around the world, is that you're crazy. You're going to be admitted into a psych ward. So, of course, that comes with a lot of shame, and shame leads to silence. So, my journey starts in silence. Now, I would not even have known I had mental health issues. What I did know was that I was different. What I did know was that to be different, I needed to suppress that, otherwise, something bad would happen to me. Now, as a child, you don't know that there are consequences of suppressing things. So, fast forward to teenage years, to my early 20s, that is when suppressing things like I'm not good enough, things like if I am a gay man, then I will be beaten up, isolated, or killed. When you suppress those things, it leads to complex PTSD. Did not have the language for it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, as I told you in the last one, how far you've come now to be open about sharing these things. It's led to a platform for you, quite a big one now as it's continuing to grow internationally. What is your motivation to continue sharing your story? Let's talk about when you first started to share your story, maybe.
Well, when I started sharing my story, it started out by being in a 12-step recovery program.
Okay.
And that's how I started breaking through the shame, in essence. And so I started making peace with all aspects of my life and integrating into oneself. That is when I had the freedom to share my story in essence. And it started with, bizarrely, it started with gratitude lists. So it started with, I'm so grateful for having a home. I'm so grateful for having food. That's how it started. And then I got bored of gratitude lists and I was like, there's more here. That's like super, for me, it was like, there's more. So then it started with then short stories leading to a whole book called Dreams Forging My Own Path. And why that's important for me is that no person ever has to go through what I've gone through on this planet in this universe. We have one physical life. Yes, people listening, we know we'll talk about being reincarnated. But in this version of myself, I've been reincarnated to help people integrate into one self. No more the splintered parts of self. So it's possible. It's been possible for me, and I've gone through excruciating pain, excruciating, trauma, but it's possible to come out the other side one life, one bright, shining life.
What advice would you have for someone who was in your shoes at that moment where you didn't know which way to go? You had all of the cards stacked against you. There was that turning point. Help our listeners out here.
So the turning point is asking for help. Now, when I was 19 years old, I asked for help, but I got the wrong advice. I
Okay.
went to a counselor and told them that I am gay and there's something wrong with me, and they agreed. And instinctively, I knew that that advice was wrong. And so for then the next 20 years or so, I didn't ever ask for help again. So the thing I would say to people listening, our wondrous guests, is when you ask for help and it doesn't sit right with you, don't give up. Knock on another door. Got to push through to the other door. Otherwise, the mental health issues don't just disappear. So if one door closes, try again, please.
I always use a similar analogy when it comes to therapy, where the first one most likely won't be a good fit. It could be. It's not a one size fits all system with therapy. For me, I am more fond of self-reflection, exercise, taking breaks in nature. Those are things that I use for me. They're not going to work for everyone. Some people do not like to exercise. Some people don't like to read. Reading and writing for me is one of the ultimate mental health boosters I can use, and it just happens to be a career. Did you always think you were going to put your story into a book?
I didn't even think I could write. So let alone it being in a book. And I think that is why life can be so incredible when you rise up to face the challenges brought before us, because it's inside of working through who I am, working through these situations that has led to different opportunities and discovering who I can be. So, of course, the person who was untreated trauma is a different person who has been treated for their trauma. So, of course, different superpowers show up that I had never known existed within me.
I'm adding that to the show notes here too, different superpowers emerging over time. And I think that's such an inspiring message where you can't ever give up. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep being creative, all of these things. I want to touch on some other areas here that I know you can bring value to the show here. Making powerful decisions for personal professional growth. We danced around those topics a little bit during our chat so far, but I know mental health plays a large role in everything, where if you're not feeling well, you're not going to perform, whether it's at work or in your personal life with hobbies, you name it. Do what you can to help out our audience here. Provide some golden nuggets.
That's going to be my next book, How to Make Powerful Decisions Easily.
Okay.
Um, Definitely my next book. It's definitely what people are asking for. The premise, firstly, is that the moment we are born, we're born into a context. And a context can mean framework. And it's a framework is like people's ideas of who I should be. Good boys don't cry, girls cross their legs, you must smile when you're in a social engagement. So all of those ideas we're born into, and we're trained from the moment we're born by parents, teachers, peers, and it's happening right here, right now. Be a lawyer, be a doctor. But the thing that nobody is asking is who is Rugare? Who is Vincent? We are being told constantly who we should be. Now, the problem with that is that some of the wisdom that's being passed on to us, or the training, the wiring of the brain is useful, but most of it is actually unuseful. And then as we grow up and become adults, we have this sense of things don't work quite well. There's a lack of joy, there's a lack of peace, and a lack of freedom, and we don't quite know why. We may have more money in our bank accounts, we may have a roof over our head, we may have children and married. We married our high school sweetheart, but things are not quite right. The reason for that is that we are not walking through life examining, like, is this idea of who I am actually freedom? Is this idea of who I am who I say I am? A lot of who we say we are things that are acquired from other people. So the beginning of making powerful decisions is even questioning our standards and ideals. Who said you needed to be perfect? Who said you needed to have everything in control? Who said you needed to have $20,000 in the bank account? Who said? So once we start questioning those standards and ideals, what will start arising is who our value system. So for me, I've got my six values: integrity, responsibility, wonder, etc., etc. And those are who I say I am. And when I say who I say I am, they're not just out there externally, they're within me. I noticed that I like people to gasp in awe. So when I'm doing a project, I'm always very detailed about it, whether it's my book, whether it's my website, whether it's my LinkedIn, whether it's even this conversation with you, Vincent. I'm always looking at how people have that feeling of wonder. When I'm with my husband, and that's been from a child to now. It's never changed in essence. So I have to be very conscious about my values. So the next step for people is to really write out those three main core values and live them every day. Now, for me, making decisions is easy because I ask the question, am I going to be honoring my word today? Simple. I've got my schedule, it's all in there, and I show up to my agreements. I'm a man of integrity. But living my values doesn't mean being perfect. So living the value of integrity, meaning honoring my word, most of the day, I'm actually looking at how I haven't honored my word and getting into communication with all the people impacted. And that's how I be a person of integrity.
I love how
Making
you're
decisions is
always
easy.
so authentic, and the few times we've spoken, your authenticity really comes out. Do you find that you being very vulnerable about what you went through and your authenticity helped when you were forging your own path by really stepping into it fully?
Absolutely. Because authenticity, telling the truth regarding everything, what happens is then people rise up to be either my voice or to be my champion. So even today, believe it or not, Vincent, I'm the first gay Black African Australian to write a memoir in the world.
All
The
right.
first. However, one of the things I'm struggling with at this point in time is being hired for motivational speaking engagements. So, what do you think I went and did? Went onto my LinkedIn and shared. I'm being underutilized right now. I've got a message to share. I want to be using my voice. Now, as a business person with being a number one international bestseller and having a good business, it's unfathomable to hear business owners saying, you know, I'm being underutilized. I need help. How do I get on stages? Now, people have risen up from different parts of my community to introduce me to speaking agents, people speaking, international speaking people have had calls with me going through exactly how they've done it. That would not have been possible if I'd not asked for help. So I'm on this journey with people from all around the world who are building me up because I dare ask.
You have to ask for help. Entrepreneurs were alone most of the day, or our form of entrepreneurs are alone most of the day, but you can't do it alone all day, every day. You have to ask for help. Surround yourself with an advisory board at the minimum. Surround yourself with great conversations. One of the cooler parts of podcasting is I'm having a conversation with someone not only in a different time zone, but across the world. And we're syncing here in real time, talking mental health. Both are willing to break the stigma associated with these conversations. It's a challenge to everyone listening on. Reach out to me. Let's find a way to share your message because, as stereotypical as it may be, it's harder for me to get men to come on this show or at least even reach out to be on this show than I do females. The stigma associated with talking about
Yes,
mental health is still there. It's decreasing. I'd like to think so, but I always use the classic example. If you break your wrist, what are you going to do? You're going to rehab it. You're going to get right. If you have something going on upstairs that controls your whole body, are we going to shame it or are we going to give you off from work for a little bit to get right?
absolutely. And what you touched upon is so important. I'm a black man. So
Exactly.
let alone in the
Exactly.
in the black community where there are stereotypes of being tough, being strong, being the protector. Mental health, F that. And living in multicultural Australia where we have people from all walks of life. We have many people from China coming as international students, and there's so much pressure to get the best grades, to get into the best universities. And unfortunately, the suicide rates are amongst the sometimes Asian community because of the pressure to do so well, because there's nobody to talk to, because they're living out that standard and ideal of their parents, of their society. These things are not concepts. It's people's lives at stake. People die, families are impacted, and it's not worth it. So, yes, if you're a man today and you're listening to this, reach out to Vincent and share your story, please. We need it. We need you. I need you.
Thank you for sharing that, everyone. Yes, please reach out. It doesn't cost money to reach out to me and tell me how you're feeling. We need to all be on the same page. I'm trying to build the community out. We're working on it behind the scenes, I promise. Just as this man can attest to, juggling 1,000 things, always trying to prioritize. For me, it's making sure that I keep these weekly conversations going. Well, they've never been on the same day, probably for too long. We're coming on 5 years here of weekly shows, and it's thanks to people like today's guest who have the courage to share their story. Remember, we're not alone. You may not live where today's guest lives, but something he said may resonate with you. The way they go about their business, all these things, we can all pick up bits and pieces from each other's stories. I truly believe that it takes one story to change your life, one story, one way or the other. It doesn't have to be financially, it could be motivationally, it could be one way just you're going to grow. While we're talking about all these things, we just talked a little bit about the growth in more detail, being authentic, being vulnerable. If someone's trying to get out of that imposter syndrome, that self-doubt, breaking free of those expectations that I teased the beginning of the episode with, what can you offer them?
It's tell the truth. So, for example, I'm a leadership and business and life coach. And one of the things I'm terrible at doing is spelling on the whiteboard. And I'm a trained lawyer. Like I got through law school. I don't know how. So when I start, when I do my workshops, the thing I tell people is I make terrible spelling mistakes. Don't get enamored by that. Focus on what I'm actually saying. That frees me up rather than spending the next 6 hours thinking, can they see my spelling mistakes? Are they judging me because of my imperfection? No, I free myself up by telling the truth of where I'm at in my life. And I'm not doing any work on making my spelling any better either, because I know the medium that's going to make the difference in that workshop, my voice. That's how I deal with that.
Set clear expectations in anywhere. The communication just goes a long way. It's not like you're out here making 10 mistakes in a 10-word sentence. You're just acknowledging that we are human and mistakes are going to happen. Where on the other side, if you promise to over deliver and be perfect, A, it's probably not a mental health alignment with your client. I'll never tell you how to run your business, anyone, but I'm even at a point now where decisions have come up with current clients on renewing because of different alignment in values and how we treat each other with mutual respect and things. All of these, go ahead.
It's amazing, Vincent, because, mental health is not just a buzzword. It's grounded in science. We have mirror neurons. You know that sensation when you know somebody is lying to you or something is not quite right? You know it when somebody is just fudging things. Fudging things is not good for business. So if you're a business person and you want somebody to work with you and you want them to be at ease with you, tell the truth. It's good for your mental health and it's actually good for business. So, of course, my business is thriving because people feel safe and trust me because I am telling the truth. And those who don't feel comfortable in that space don't work with me. So, another way said is our energy, our value system will attract the right people. So, of course, as a result, I will get paid on time because people tell the truth. Or if people are struggling with paying their bills, they will tell the truth and we create a plan. So I'm not that person who is like trying to get something out of someone. My mental health is the greatest investment for living my mission on a day-to-day basis. And that is for you too.
That is an amazing response as we're getting ready to wind down this show. It's it's easier said than done, a certain discipline of not failing, but just learning certain lessons over and over again and saying, okay, am I going to let this happen again? Nothing changes as nothing changes. And I'm sitting here as we're on the call, a pen exploding in my head, got black ink all over me. It just went crazy. But before I get the contact info for today's guest of honor, if you could give one piece of advice to anyone out there who may be struggling today, just needs a little push in the right direction, what can you offer them?
Please ask for help. Our best thinking got us into this situation. So anytime I tried to work out my mental health by myself, it just made it worse. So
Yeah.
I needed somebody outside me to help. Try somebody, a friend, tell the friend, somebody, anyone, and create that pathway to get what you need. Don't stop on the first door. They may not work for you, but there is someone for you. Reach out to Vincent, reach out to myself. The other thing for those who already have good mental health and have had that enlightenment, this is what I want to say. Mental health is not a one moment phenomena. It's an everyday work. Freedom to be free, for me to be this free today, is work. So my mental health includes journaling, includes talking to Vincent. He's inspiring. So that is part of my mental health. Reading books, spending time with my husband, having that chai latte, keeping my agreements, not making promises I can't keep, really being serious about can I fulfill this agreement rather than being the good boy. All of that contributes to mental health. So mental health is not a one moment phenomena. It's work on a daily basis.
We are constant work in progress as people. We're never set forever. We all know what is good today can quickly turn bad. Nothing good lasts forever. You have to keep evolving different versions of yourself, different chapters of yourself, if you will. You keep going through these stages and keep evolving. Thank you so much again, my friend from around the world, meeting everyone through cold networking. Go out there and do it. Not every message goes unanswered, not every connection. It's unbelievable what podcasting has done for me. I'm obviously the biggest advocate for it.
Absolutely. And it's no accident because you're living your values, you're open, authentic, and you're on a mission and elevating the consciousness of humanity. It's no small feat that you've been doing this for 5 years, day in, day out, Vincent. So from me and from Australia, from Sydney, Australia, thank you. Thank you.
And where can we thank you and find you online?
So you can find me in many places on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and you can find me on my website, www.rugaregomo.com. My favorite social media is LinkedIn. That's where it's all taking place. So find me on LinkedIn.
I appreciate you sharing that because many people, like myself, have the shiny object syndrome where Instagram was just there. And I moved to YouTube and LinkedIn and things that can impact more people with my business. But the show is at a mental health break on all podcast platforms. Please rate the show 5 stars. Leave a review for how amazing today's guest was. And we'll also follow us on social media. I'm at vincentalancy.com. Vincent A. Lancy on all social media, and this show is brought to you by Coming Alive Podcast Production, your one-stop shop for any step in the podcasting world. Head to the link in bio to get started. But with that, from Australia all the way down to St. Petersburg, Florida, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks.